In many ways, people would rather talk about sex or anything else because they don't have to remember what it was like to be
Right.
young, really young. And I want to tell you, you know that I, I brought children and old people together for 40 years in schools, in nursing homes. My students, I taught at a community college for 24 years. And that's what half the time I was free in the community. My board loved what I was doing. And they said, go out there and do it. And I'm the person that do it. And I did. And honest to God, how did I get on the front page of the Chicago Tribune in color with my two adopted grandchildren from Peru? I got on there. I mean, because I was the only educator who talked about this. Nobody in my level. So who adopted me? The Administration on Aging.
Yeah.
In, guess where? Phoenix, Arizona.
Mhm.
I've come back to my beginning. I did all kinds of talks in Phoenix. I did talks about bringing this, and so now I'm here. And where did it all start? I'll tell you one thing. Then we'll get on to the to the to the handout. I started this because I, from the age of birth to 5, was part of a huge Orthodox Hasidic group. And my grandfather was my idol, and he adored me, and I adored him. And then when we moved away, I had to adjust to all kinds of religions, and I did, of course. But, but, here's the thing. The love I got from that 5 years, from being pinched on my cheeks and my behind and being hugged and being loved. Do you know, Uri Brown from Brenner said, every child must have one adult, young child, who's crazy about the child, and the child has to be crazy about him or her. And if you have that when you're little, you've got the root to your tree that goes all the way into the earth and all the way to God, because your tree will blossom. And I believed that. So what I got from the 5 years was one word. And folks, it's love.
Mhm.
That is what has perpetuated my behavior. Why am I walking around with things like this? Can you read this? I'll read it for you. Love celebrates the joy of living. And I will tell you that when I got on airplanes and when I travel, and I've spoken all over the country and in British Columbia and in England about grandparents before anything else, I'd sit down on the plane and I'd say to who's next to me if they wanted to talk, do you have grandparents? And then, or did you ever? Oh my, yes, I did. I said, and were they important to you? Oh, yeah, some, mostly yes. I said, do me a favor, close your eyes for a second and see if you can see your grandparent in your head. And oh, they did. And then they opened their eyes. I have 2 questions. Would you be the same? No, one question. Would you be the same person today if you never had that grandparent when you were young? And some of them said, I never thought of that. A lot of them said that. I said, well, I'm in no rush. So I was the listener. Do you know they started to talk and they wouldn't close their mouth? They wouldn't stop talking. They just opened up and told me their stories, followed me to the bathroom. They wanted to tell me about their families and how much love they got from them. I mean, I could cry just thinking about these people needed to tell their stories. And I just invited them to do that. I swear I interviewed 1,000 people before I wrote my book. Absolutely 1,000.
Helene,
Yes.
a few minutes ago, the image that you were talking about with the one grandparent as being the root of the tree from which we all blossom, is that your image, or is that based on someone's writing? Do you attribute that to someone else?
Say that again. Is that my opinion, or is
Well,
that?
not opinion, but is that whole image, that description, does
It's
that come from somebody else, or is that yours? If I want to use that when I'm speaking or teaching, was that phrase, is that yours, or is that from some other theoretician?
It's absolutely everyone's from, oh my God, go on the, it's absolutely everyone's, every person in psychiatry, social work, education who studies this. It's not me. I learned it from them.
Okay, all right.
Thank you for asking, though.
Well, I just want to make sure that I'm quoting the correct people.
Yes. Where's Steve? I don't see Steve.
Right there.
Is he here?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm
Where?
on the top. It depends what view you have. Oh, now you see me.
No,
Okay.
now you're in the middle.
Now, okay. I love talking to people that I can see. Okay, so.
I just, Helene, could I interrupt? Could I ask something?
Yeah, sure. Just ask.
Yeah, that experience is with a grandparent, with an ideal grandparent, is very fortunate if you have it.
Okay.
If you have it. I think people have individual experiences sometimes that might deviate from that. Unfortunately, I had a grandmother who visited often, who lived with us when we were in Israel, in the same apartment. She was, she probably had her reasons, but she was a very sad and bitter person. She had lost a husband early on. She had lost a child. That may have been part of it, but we really didn't get along.
I believe you.
And so I kind of, I lacked that. I had a grandfather on the other side that we didn't see very often just because of distance. And so, hopefully you could sometimes have another older adult. I guess you're talking about someone other than the parent, but an older adult who might be able to fill that, or a friend of the family, maybe.
May I say this?
Because I've been doing my, actually I have an upcoming Zoom meeting. We're calling it a Marin reunion, Marin family reunion. I got a lot of responses. Somebody pointed out to me, it's not really a reunion because a lot of us don't even know each other from before. It's sort of getting acquainted for the first time. But, anyway, you can have, well, I'm having a little moment here. I'm just trying to connect what I was trying to make with that point. But just perhaps, there were just people who I encountered when I was working on this Zoom meeting, having discussions with people who had maybe lost a parent at an early age. And then sometimes the brother of the parent, the uncle, was a very dominant and helpful and loving image that
You are
helped
on
with their growth.
Marsha, I'm sorry, Chris, you are, because not everybody had wonderful grandparents. Some of them beat them. Believe me, after talking to 1,000 people, I do have examples. Yes, Chris, you wanted to say something.
Yes, I was thinking a little bit about, you put in your pamphlet about the mysterious concepts that we got, or the mystical, or kind of a magic, you call them. My grandmother died when I was very young, but I adore her. She is my mentor. She always was. Actually, I believe that my strong connection with God came through her. And I never knew her. I mean, I was barely 5 years old when she died, so I didn't really get to know or live with her. But I adore her.
Okay, now
What do you say about that?
I do want to say something, and I've got another quote for you. Dr. Maria Peers, who came from Europe, who knew Sigmund Freud, she knew all the top people, and her husband was president of the Institute of Psychoanalysis. These were the top dog people. She came and started the Erickson Institute. And here's what she said about what you just said, Mark. All right, Chris?
Okay.
If you have one person, that's usually a grandmother, don't forget, this was 60 years ago I heard this quote. If you have a grandmother or grandfather, and there is a reciprocal relationship, that she loves you so much, you love her so much, and there's this tremendous bonding.
It was.
The only relationship that is called unconditional, because it's unconditional because there's no rules, there's no criticism, it's only pure love that's pouring into you from this person. And I want you to know, Steve, that I wrote a book exactly because I couldn't stand it. My book, I'll tell you about it later, it's in your handout, because I know that so many people can take the place of the grandmother, and it doesn't have to be a blood relationship. That's why I use the word grand friendships. Did you see that word in there? If you read it, did you see the word grand friendships? Well,
Right, in your brochure, right.
yeah, my book is Don't Cheat the Children, because I think children who are cheated of this bond, their root doesn't go very deep. It goes, but not this way. Don't cheat the children, connecting generations through grand friendships, uncles, aunts, the person next door, somebody who lives next door to you. If that bond happens, there's magic between young and old. I have seen hundreds and hundreds of times we would bring old people to the daycare center, the little children, they behave so differently with the old people. They come and sit in their laps, they're not even invited. I think they're reminded of goodness, because to children, old people bring love if they have this bond. So that's enough maybe with that. Is there someone else who wants to comment on that before we get into how the last taboo affects children? Yes, Marsha.
I'm the fortunate one. I had two wonderful grandparents, and what I find myself doing, I talk to my grandchildren about my grandparents.
Wonderful.
Because they were so, I always talked to them. I said, do you know that my grandfather walked down the aisle at my wedding?
Uh-huh.
I mean, they all must know it by now, because that's how I want the continuity.
That's
You
right.
know, of me, because I'm very lucky. I have almost 11 of them. Well, one will be married soon, so I count her also. My grandson, fiance. But I make sure that they know that this isn't just me loving them. It's what my job is, because that's how I felt my grandparents felt, that it was so important for them to be a part of my life.
And your story, Marsha, here's what I learned, and I'm always learning. I swear to God, I learn every day. It's my nature. I learned recently, in the last couple of years, that stories are now considered by Harvard and all the top scientific, in any of the research, stories, your story of your life, Steve and Chris, should be told. And they call it a happening. What happened? A happening, Rabbi. What happened to you, Rabbi, when you were young. And if you can tell that and tell the story of how you got through the hard times with with the war, you just tell them. And if you can tell your story, like Marcia is telling, the children have a historical picture of who they are and what comes through all of us and what we can share and how they can be strengthened. And I'm not, we could talk about this for more than this, but I think I'd like to get into the handout because I want to hear what you said about it. So where is Ruth Ann?
I'm here.
Is it all right with
Oh,
everybody?
you want to put the handout up?
Let me ask if anybody else has got something to say. I'm here to listen. Anybody else want to talk about? Okay.
I think the rabbi was going to make a comment, but he had to step out.
Oh, he
Noticed that
Yeah.
when Marcia was talking, he
Yeah.
also kind of made a motion that he wanted to say something. So
Okay.
no,
Do you,
he's
Helene, do you want the handout up?
yeah, I do. I want to hear what you have to say. I may not be able to look at you, but I want
right.
to. Okay.
Steve, I'm very much appreciating what you've been doing with being able to share your screen. Especially on this computer, it's not easy.
How do
Oh,
you?
it looks, well, I'm getting it fine. Everything looks okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're so good, Ruthann. You really are.
Okay, who would look? Somebody tell me you're thinking about this.
Sorry, I'm back.
Oh no, it's all right. We're going to be doing the handout, and I would really, really like to know what your reaction was. Anything. What? I'm waiting.
Okay.
Yes, Steve.
Yeah. I guess just the thing that impressed me was, of course, you're focused on helping children approach this concept of death. But that kind of, in a way, that assumes that as adults, we have it sorted out, and we don't. As adults, children have difficulty with the concept of dying. Adults have problems with the concept of dying too. We're not, because it isn't part of our sort of wired makeup to see things as temporary.
Right.
We unfortunately, it's just a sort of a psychological imprint that we see things as permanent, always permanent, and
Right.
we pay the price for that. So I guess, when I'm reading this, and it's a lovely pamphlet, I read it briefly, and everything makes sense from the standpoint of the stages, but I just had to ask myself, as an adult,
Yeah.
do
what
I
about-
have this issue all sorted out? Not really. Not really. I'm not sure I do either, So I guess you're going to have another program about helping adults with the concept of death and dying. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross did that.
Oh yeah,
but-
yeah. And Steve, the rabbi and I are talking about doing another one exactly on that topic. You just put your finger on it.
I think it's wonderful too, because once you get a master, at least you understand it, then you might be able to teach it. But if you don't really know, I think your point is excellent, Steve. I read the pamphlet and I think, yeah, I wish, my kids were younger and I could have done all of that. But I myself don't understand it. I myself, when my parents were gone, I had to deal with the same things. And there was nobody there to tell me, and I was a full grown up. At 52, I felt orphaned for the first time ever. So I think we need that. Yeah.
Okay.
Recognizing that certainly the pamphlet, which is very helpful, it stresses for us. Thank you, Helene. It stresses that people need, whether it's the parents, whether it's the grandparents, certainly need to be honest enough to say to the child, I don't really have an answer. This is what I believe, but what do you, and to ask the child, what do you think? How do you describe it? Let's try to work it through together. Steve is correct. Absolutely. Most of us have not resolved our own issues of death and dying. And then when we're confronted by a child or a grandchild, we revert to these euphemisms because we don't know what else to say.
Right.
Oh, you know what, Rabbi? My cardiologist, when I was being examined, he knew about my intergenerational, he knew me. And he said, Helene, my 5-year-old son said, Daddy, what does death mean? And and the cardiologist said, I didn't know what to say. What words would I use? Nobody ever taught me. Actually, we are the first generation to talk about this openly. I'm very excited about this because there's no one who's older who knows what you know right now. This is, and I thought we were the first ones. Do you know Hillary Rodham Clinton wrote a book, It Takes a Village? You remember that book?
Yes.
Maybe you haven't seen it. It fell out of one of my boxes as I was unpacking. This one, It Takes a Village. And I looked at it again. 24 years ago, she said the same thing we are saying. The information is there. Death education has been pouring itself, but no one will talk about it because of what you said, Steve. We don't get it for ourselves. That's where it starts. And that's where I can truly help because that's my field. And not my intellectual field as much as it is my reality. I was out in the community and I learned from people, and children. And I can, in many ways, help you because I've been helping myself accept the end of death and dying. So thank you. I'm very happy that you brought that up. Okay, do you want to talk about any parts of this? You can go through, we can go through is there an age group or a stage that you would like? Although maybe this is time for, Rabbi, maybe it's time for you. What do you think?
Well, I just wanted, in response to your question, on the first page, I specifically underlined and marked off or highlighted that it's important to match nonverbal behavior with the words that we do use.
Yes.
Because the children sense instinctively if we're telling the truth, and they sense instinctively if we're comfortable with what we're saying, if we're trying to fool them, if we're trying to avoid answering them. So that the body language and the nonverbal cues are very important, whether it's with tears, whether it's with laughter. Is it all, people ask me frequently at the time of a funeral, is it all right to say something that's funny? Is it all right to be laughing at the funeral? And of course it is. If that's the appropriate tribute with which we express our love and respect for someone, but we tend to hold back and repress the real emotions, whether they're verbal or nonverbal.
That's because many of us still have untouched feelings from our childhoods.
Mm-hmm.
And this reminds us of things that might hurt us. And it's hard for us to respond in a comfortable way. And it's so important to talk about it because without talking, without the stories, without what you're saying today, it will stay a taboo. people will not discuss it, and we are going to lead the way for discussion. I feel it in my kishkis. So, Rabbi, do you want to do your thing now? Maybe
No, I'm enjoying listening and sharing. I don't have any specific things. I can add a few comments as we go through this, and maybe even one or two personal illustrations. But you're doing fine. You're doing fine. I appreciate what you're doing.
Oh no, it's not. It's I would have been interested. Well then, where is that? Where is that book, honey, with the Hillary Rodham Clinton? I found something here. I don't know if I still can find it, but she says that she wishes that when she gets into these discussions, that she would something from the Bible, because the Torah talks about children being protected. Am I wrong, Rabbi? Does the Torah, any examples from the Torah? Is it King Solomon? No. Who is it? Who talks about babies being half of, I don't know, whatever it was, we don't have.
Well, there's the story of the two women who each claim that the baby is theirs, and right,
Oh,
okay,
that's Solomon? Yeah.
and so Solomon says, okay, if you're each claiming, then let's take a knife and we'll cut the baby in
Cut
half,
a baby in half, right?
right? And the real mother said, no, absolutely not, don't do that. And Solomon knew she's the one who is the natural mother, because the mother would choose to save the child's life.
You see, the real mother is the one that bonded, as we just said, to the infant. Think about having an infant in your arms. I will talk more about this when we talk about Steve's suggestion. But think about an infant in your arms. There's something that happens to you. Everybody that's well, I mean, who's sensible and emotionally stable, bonds with something they don't understand. The joy goes right through
No,
them.
and I can't hear consistently.
Am I wrong? Steve, did you hear? Yeah. So.
Oh, I'm sorry. My internet is unstable right now. It's telling me, so I'm not hearing consistently. It's very, very choppy. Hopefully it'll go away. It'll improve.
Is there someone who would like to talk about a certain stage? The preschool, the adolescent stage, to have teenage great-grandkids or grandkids? Which part of the hospice guidelines should we talk about? Is there a part of it we could go to that interests you? Or should I choose one?
I'll mention two, not necessarily associated with a particular age bracket from the guidelines, but just from my own experience. One is the rabbinic professional experience, and the other is personal experience as a parent.
Okay.
The professional one that certainly I appreciated seeing here, it happens to be at the bottom of page 5, is make sure that the child does not feel responsible in any way for the death of the grandparent or anyone with whom he or she is experiencing a sense of loss and grief, because I do encounter that frequently. I should have done something differently. What did I do? The last time that I remember a child saying, "Oh, they must have died because I didn't give them a kiss when I walked out the door," something like that. So there's that. Then the other parallel to that, and I would identify it, and as a parent, I remember it when we lost a teenage son to cancer, and that the younger son, who was 6, 7 at the time, his curiosity, and that so he wandered into the casket room and didn't really understand what he was going to see at that point. But it was not only his curiosity about what a dead body would look like, what his brother would look like, but also that he felt that he had been left out. That everyone was so focused on the parents and the surviving grandparents that the younger sibling was just kind of left alone.
Right.
The issue in my career is what you put your finger on. It's guilt. It's particularly guilt for the preschool child, because if you go back, see, I think that's one of the most important, absolutely, and we'll have to get into that if you want to learn about yourself. The preschool child, his brain is not, he only has part of a brain that's working, and it's not the cognitive, it's the pre-operational brain. It cannot take in abstractions. It only takes in feelings. You're born with feelings. How many feelings do you have? You have anger, you have joy, you have feelings. That's what you're born with. And the child is totally involved in those feelings, and he does not believe that death is permanent. The child has to grow out of this. So when he's 6 or 7, some not until they're 10, you can look it up in the book or on the inline. The child's brain does not coalesce, so the abstractions will make sense. It doesn't make any sense to the child when you say your grandma is in heaven. What in God's name is heaven? And passing, if people say she passed away, what do you mean? The child says, my brother passed his test, or the car just passed me. It's language in the preschool, and I would love, either now or the next time we meet, to go over that preschool on this handout. Would you do that with me? Would you go to the preschool, or is there something else you want to say?
Why don't we start with that?
Yeah.
Let's go to the preschool. One.
Okay, is it on any particular page of this handout?
Oh, sure.
On mine, it's page 4.
Well, everybody's is.
You can scroll on the share. Oh, yeah, there you go.
Here's 4. Hey, good, Ruth Ann.
Keep going to the bottom.
This part is the easy part.
What?
The biggest problem on this computer is the mouse is very poor. And it's always been that way, which is why this computer tends to spend more time in the closet than any place else.
We're trying it. Let's look at newborn to 3 years. Does someone want to read this, or should I read that first part? Somebody? No? Helene? Okay. Okay. Child's perception. This is what I like about this hospice. They give you how the child perceives it, and then how you can provide support. I have seen many, many, many things on how the child perceives it, but I have never seen how adults can provide support. Okay, the infant toddler, the brand new infant, and this is science, Rabbi, this is science, can sense there is and this wasn't written today, can sense when there's excitement, stress, the whole thing. They can tell when a significant person is missing. They can tell when somebody comes that's new, because of no understanding of death, and absorbs emotions around him or her. And here's what's so interesting. If there's trouble in the family, if the mother is unhappy, if there's a divorce, if there's trouble at all, the infant may change his eating patterns. He may start having bowel problems. He's crying. It doesn't mean that things are always perfect when the mother and father are happy and solid. But the nonverbal communications, I think, was so crucial. What you said is, as far as being physically and how we can provide support. And what do you do? What do you do for a mother who's alone, who has no family in this country of ours that's separated? We have no neighbors, are hard to find that will come in and be with you when you have a baby. What do you do? How does that feel for the mother? She needs support. The baby needs love, touching, quiet, security. Maybe the baby will get that now that we're locked in, huh? Maybe the kids that are born now will have what this, that bring back this stuff. So the question is, do you remember as a child any of this? Steve, do you remember yourself at 3? Anything?
No.
I didn't encounter a death myself at that age, so
How about
so that
separation?
did.
How
Yeah.
about separation? We're not just talking about dead people. I'm talking about separation. You had a nice blanket that you loved, and you slept with that blanket, and then they left the blanket on the train. Do you know what you did when you were 3 and you didn't have your blanket? Do you know what you did? Guess what?
Cried. Cried.
You threw a fit.
Huh? You'd have a, say it again, Chris.
You threw a fit.
A
You couldn't
fit.
sleep. You couldn't eat. You cried.
I blamed my sister.
Yes,
Blamed my little sister.
I won my blanket.
Your little
Yes.
sister. Your little sister. How about a pet? How about
Yes.
when a pet dies and you're ignored? What? How do you feel inside? Do you feel the anger? Where's my pet? What?
Yeah.
Who talks?
Well,
Yeah. Well,
I
pets
don't know
believe.
if they have the emotions to really speak of them. They probably concentrated all in moaning, crying without understanding why or how to express their sadness. Because all of those things are emotions that we learn to as we grow. But if you're that little, I don't know that you can really understand what happened to my pet or my dog or my bird or my blanket.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
if you don't have parents that were trained, I didn't know this. I didn't know what to do.
Sure.
I swear to God, I did not know what to do. And I want to go to 3 to 6 years now. Please, Ruth Ann, because this is where it is. Ruth Ann, can you go? Okay. Okay.
But she's not here this minute. But I think that what I did when the kids were little and they didn't know how to handle something, you just pick them up and hold them and said, it'll be okay, it'll be okay. And if they had confidence in you,
Well, it depends how you feel. If you feel strong and you understand this is how children deal with life, then you're fine. But what if you're not strong? What if you yourself are a wreck and exhausted?
well,
You know what it's like to
then you
not.
call a friend to come over and help you.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, I'm going to read you the 3 to 6. She's not here. But I'm going.
Okay.
Is she back here, Ruth Ann? No. I wanted you to see the 3 to 6, so I have to tell you. It's important. What time is it? Yeah, because you'll think about this with Steve's suggestion. The 3 to 6 is the hardest stage to understand and to respond to. If I knew this, believe me, I would have raised my kids differently. A child's perception, they think death is reversible. It's temporary, like going to sleep or when a parent goes to work. They believe that people who die, folks, will come back.
Question. And
Yeah,
this is
why?
not so much from a Jewish point of view as from a psychological and educational development point of view.
Sure.
At which point do children have a sense of time where they can say, oh, okay, this is, well, maybe in a 24-hour period, or a week or a month or a year? At which point can they start to identify? So, he says, well, it's like going to sleep, or a parent going to work. Do they have a sense of how long it is before the parent comes back?
No,
No. Okay.
no.
So,
That's why they like peekaboo. Peekaboo, I see,
Oh,
you know,
okay.
everything comes back, but here
right.
it's going back to the brain, which I'll talk much about next time we do this. There's the pre-operational brain. They can't operate with time. My God, time. They go out and play with the blocks, or they ride their bikes, or time means nothing to them. 3, 4, 5 years, if they're free as birds. And okay, what do you do? How do you handle this? Because by the time they're 6, 7, 8, some are earlier, and some are 10, they're finally accepting that death is final. It takes that long to accept it. They hate it. We hate it too, for God's sake. I would love to think that death isn't, and in fact, I do. Spiritually, I do believe that death isn't final, that our souls are with God in the universe. I really believe that. But here's the other side of the coin. Pre-operational until 6, 7, 8, and then concrete operational. Abstractions, yes, time starts and they are started, but this is also slow. We take it in slowly, slowly, slowly. And then, okay, this magical thinking, they're really magical. And I will tell you about the bird. When I was an intern for graduate school, I was in a Jewish community center for children, and a bird in the playground was killed. And 4-year-olds came to me, 3, 4 of them, and they said, "There's a bird out in the playground and it's not moving." And so I went out and I saw the bird was dead. So I said, okay, I said, let's bury it. They said, okay. So we dug a hole, we put the bird in, we covered it up, we put a flower down, we sang a little prayer. Okay, the bird is dead. I didn't know that I should talk about it more, but that's all I did. I said dead, I didn't know if they knew it. 2 days later, folks, they came to me. Okay, he's ready to fly again. Let's dig him up. I said, what? Let's dig him up. So I go out there and I dig up the bird and I take it out. I said, does it look like he's going to fly? They didn't want to answer me. They don't want to believe that death is final. And I said, I don't think he can fly. I'm not sure he can eat or anything. And they said, oh, we're going outside to ride our bikes. They don't want to talk about it. And this one says,
Come back in a couple more days and try it again.
so it's something that we have to accept at this age. This is the age where we must, we must help them, because they do regressive behaviors. If something happens, if separation happens, they're going to act out. They are going to start. When there's a divorce, they wet their beds sometimes. They start sucking their thumbs. Sometimes there's more aggression. And it says here, escapes into play. Only play is freedom, because nobody's telling them how to play. And they hunger for affection and physical contact, even from strangers, because they're frightened. Some won't talk. They have no anxiety at all. So what do? That's why I wrote this handout. Try to keep things normal. Give them opportunities to play, to draw, read books. Be careful of books, I said. Make sure be honest with the child. Just what you said, Rabbi, you don't have an answer, and see if you can gently confront magical thinking. I don't know how you do that, but maybe you can help me figure that out. Be tolerant of regressive behavior. How many times do you remember your child or grandchild asking you to read the same book over and over and over and over and over, or tell the same story? How many
Over.
times?
Yeah.
Am I wrong, Chris?
No, I remember the book by memory. Yeah.
Ruth Ann, please go to the 3 to 6 year old stage.
Okay, sorry about that. Ellen Brody finally contacted me to say that she couldn't get in, and I was waiting for her to call me back, which is why
Here's
we
what I
went too far.
look at this. Would you guys please? Please, so important.
Okay.
This is what we are going to do about ourselves, or maybe you can start connecting. How was I at 3? How was I at 4? What do I remember? By the way, science says you can't remember anything mostly. Almost no one could remember 2, but 3, there's a lot of you who could remember yourself at 3, the way you played, how you felt. And you can, Steve?
No, understood. Yeah, Helene, yeah, I just wanted to share something that exemplifies an example of this period. It's something my dad actually shared with me that was a memory from when he was 5, and it remained with him for his entire life. His mother went in for some sort of operative procedure, and you know, of course, he and his older brother asked, well, where's mom? Where's mom? You know, and just sort of shrugged it off. Then finally they said, okay, we're taking you to see your mother. Okay, we're going to see your mother. And everybody was acting. He remembers that people were acting very anxious, not quite normally, you know, about this whole thing. This wasn't just, you know, something about it wasn't the same. And so they crossed the street, and you know, he was a little reluctant already. She had died during the procedure, and the sisters and of course, you know, in a Jewish tradition, you don't have an open casket, but the Chevra Kadisha will allow immediate family to say goodbye to the deceased. So the sisters of his very young mother, she was like in her early 20s, insisted that he say goodbye to his mother. They brought him into this room and lifted him up, and there was a dead woman in a box, and he just fought. He said, that's not my mother. He couldn't even, something within told him that it looks like the person, but that's not her. So he just said, no, it's not my mother. It's not my mother. He was fighting them. He was rescued by his grandfather. You know, his grandfather just saw, this is not, this is not going to happen. Okay, so he remembers his grandfather took him aside, took him away from the sisters, and just sat with him in a corner and fed him nuts from his pocket.
Well,
And
I think
and my dad remembers that whole incident. Afterwards, in the funeral, his older brother, who was like 3 years older, he told me that he remembered saying, you know, just throw water on her face, you know, she'll be okay. So,
you know, Steve, let me tell you that the memory of your grandfather taking you and being alone and quiet with you was the great gift. The one-on-one quiet time with a child, you don't need words because they feel everything.
It wasn't actually me, it was my dad.
But he passed that on to you and you never forgot it. This is the issue. We never forget the stories that our grandparents, great-grandparents, or special friends tell us for through life. And I'm telling you that today's research is showing that children who have solid preschool years with solid people in a strong family grow up very strong, very strong. And they can do almost anything because they have these roots. And the kids who don't have them, they keep this anger. And I do have one story about guilt that I think I have to tell you, and then we'll have to stop soon. But this is about children's guilt. My friend, who's a professional, and I was trying to talk her into understanding the preschool child. And she said, well, I have a preschool great-grandchild. I see her, she lives in California, but we see each other 3-4 times a year, and we bonded. We really love each other. And she said, oh, no, I'm getting confused, sorry. It's her grandchild who bonded with the great-grandmother in California. The grandchild lived with my friend. And, you know, and the great-grandmother in California was close to the grandchild. Those two really bonded. When the great-grandmother died, the grandchild said to my friend, I should have, Rabbi, I think you said this, I should have visited her more often. I should have told her I love her. I should have. And I'm going to do something. This is a 5-year-old talking. You will not believe what comes out of 3, 4, and 5-year-olds' mouths. You will, next time you won't believe it. She said, okay, she said, I'm going to think of her every single day for the rest of my life. And if I stop thinking about her, she'll be dead, dead.
That's the truth.
Double dead.
Child.
Double dead, right.
Pardon me? What'd you say, Rabbi?
No, I said that she said she'll be dead. A second time she'll die. I mean, that's a very poignant and profound way of saying it.
A 5-year-old said that.
Uh-huh.
You know, and so what can I say to you? We could go on with this. It's, what time is it? 12 o'clock. Or we could end it and look forward to talking more about us. Because believe me, this talking about us is the ultimate last taboo. So what did we go, you know, tell me what you want. I'm here for you. Is this enough for now? And we'll look forward to the next.
I'm up for another opportunity.
You
Yeah,
will?
let's go for another opportunity. We're gonna have plenty
Okay,
of
I
time.
have one thought. Maybe we should try to think, because I guess we haven't done it in a while, about our relationships with our grandparents. And we could even write something down
You sure
so
could.
that we can have a background more of it.
You sure can. And mostly, I would suggest it's not easy. I don't cry easily. I was never, no one in my family cried. I'm a first generation American. I was born in 1932. I'm 88 years old. You know what was happening in 32. And I understand immigrants. I understand family keeping you alive. But I understand family love because I couldn't understand Yiddish and I couldn't understand Hebrew. I have that problem in my brain and I could not. And they only talked a little bit about in English. So I had to study the people in my family's faces and behaviors and nonverbal. And that's how I learned to be so intuitive. So yes, let's wait. Let's do a big one. Oh, it'll be, but I think a small group like this is encouraging, isn't it, for you to tell your own
Yes.
story? Or should you do a big group? Tell me, I don't know.
I think the people that responded was the people that desired to be in this group. And I think it's important that we allowed our choices to make the decisions
Yes,
of where we need to be at the time. You know, so I'm looking forward to the next one, definitely.
Would you like it small like this, or?
As many people as they want to participate, all I'm saying is that people that they are here were made the choice to be here. And you'll open the invitation for everyone. So don't, to me, it's important that you're here and that you provide us with your knowledge and your information.
And you know what else? I
So,
One thought, maybe it should be open to other people. Maybe people didn't know about it, maybe people couldn't come. But I think that since we're at one session now, maybe you could do a little review of where we are, so they don't come
that
empty-handed.
mhm,
Yes, good. I like that. Thank
yeah,
you. Okay, then we'll do it. We'll do a review, and we'll have a session, and we will, but try to get into your feelings when you were the preschool person. And how did you handle anger? How did you handle when nobody talked to you ever about your dog dying? Nobody, you were isolated. These feelings, I have had so much experience with this. I'll be happy to do it. Okay?
okay.
Okay,
Bye.
Thank you very much, Elaine.
thank you.
Thank you
We'll
so
be
much.
Thank
be
you.
in touch.
Thank